Welcome to this segment of Recovery TV. Are you finding that you and your partner or spouse are fighting more and more? Well, if that's the case, then this video is for you, so stay with me. Welcome to this segment of Recovery TV. I'm here today with my friend and colleague Matt Stevenson, who is a licensed marital and family therapist and a certified discernment counselor. And we're going to share with you some really important information if you're in a couple relationship and you're seeing an escalation in fighting and arguments. One of the first videos I did was with Matt where we actually talked about this question of what is discernment counseling, and I'll put a link right here so you can click on that and watch that video at your leisure. So Matt, one thing I think people are curious about is how do couples get to this point? Because I know as a marriage family therapist myself, that when couples get to this point where they're considering divorce, they often feel like it's their only option for happiness.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the main things that gets a couple to that point is, I guess you can say, a buildup of unresolved conflict. And I think that's one of the biggest factors that couples just get into fights and they harden towards each other. I think that's what naturally happens in any conflict, is that two people react to each other in an emotional way, and in order to do that, they have to really start believing very negative things about each other.
So it's more or less like a collection of wounds over time that never get dealt with. So Matt, some of our viewers might be going through this experience where they're in a highly conflicted relationship. You're seeing more and more fighting and escalation in arguments in your relationship. What would you say is important for them to understand right now?
Okay, so the first thing I think people need to think about is that conflict and fighting in a relationship doesn't always have to be a bad thing.
That is really interesting. Tell me more about what you mean by that.
Okay, that if you do it well, fighting and conflict in a relationship can lead to even more intimacy. It can lead to understanding each other in a deeper way. It can lead to people appreciating each other more by what they just learned about their spouse through that fight, or through that conflict. Yeah,
that is a very interesting concept, and I don't know if you caught that, but Matt's saying that fighting isn't always a bad thing in a relationship, and I'm assuming that's going to take you right into another thought here, so let's keep going with this conversation.
Yeah, you're right. That there's a second thing I think viewers should know, is that good conflict serves a very important purpose in a relationship. Okay. It doesn't necessarily destroy a relationship, but it can serve a very good purpose if done well. And I think most people can relate to the idea of unproductive conflict that just seems to go round and round. We're not getting anywhere.
Like spinning your wheels.
Exactly, spinning your wheels. And so what that's doing is actually trying to keep the relationship the same. It's preventing change in the relationship. But productive conflict, when you're actually hearing each other and understanding each other, it's actually producing change. It's a person willing to change the way they see their spouse in a more nuanced and understanding way.
Right. And one thing from my experience as a marriage family therapist is that even with productive conflict, it's never pleasant.
No, it's never fun.
Conflict is conflict, right?
Yeah, but it can be productive if you allow it to be.
That's a very important concept for couples to understand.
And the third thing I wanted the viewers to kind of understand about conflict is that there's oftentimes what we call a pursuit-retreat cycle, or a pursuit-distancing cycle. And that's a lot of times there's one person who's a little bit more hesitant, I guess you can say, to get into conflict, a little more avoidant of conflict. Personally, I'm one of those people. I tend to avoid conflict. I don't like it. When I'm helping a couple with it, I don't mind. I can work with it then. But when I'm involved, it's more difficult. But so what that usually produces is a spouse that's going to actually pursue conflict more. That they feel that tension in the relationship, and they want to fix it. They want to talk about it, and the other one will retreat, and then because of that, the other one will pursue, and round and round and round we go.
They're spinning your wheels again.
Yeah, very important part of the structure of a lot of conflict that goes on.
Right. I think it's important to note that not everybody is in the pursuit-retreat cycle, but a lot of couples are, and it's likely that one of you in the relationship is the pursuer and the other one is the retreater, or what we would call the distancer. And as Matt said, that if you're in a relationship, you can probably identify with one of those, even in healthy relationships.
Exactly. And if that continues to spin and get out of control, that's what can actually lead a couple to then what we kind of call the leaning in, leaning out, or the mixed agenda couple, which is looking at divorce. Oftentimes that retreater will retreat to the point of actually saying, I don't think we can fix this, I want out, or I'm thinking about getting out. And so that's where it escalates to, and that's where discernment counseling comes in, is to help people deal with that situation.
Right. And so you've given us a lot of good and important information. The first one being that fighting is not always a bad thing.
Exactly.
The second one goes right along with that, that conflict has a very important purpose in the relationship. And the third one being that couples are likely in this pursuit-retreat cycle. What are we supposed to do with that information now?
Well, if you find yourself spinning your wheels like that and your conflict just keeps going round and round and round, you don't seem to get underneath of it, it's good to reach out for help. You know, that's what we do. That's what marriage and family counselors do. But if divorce has been mentioned, if one person has kind of said, I'm thinking about divorce, or it's been mentioned, discernment counseling might be the option for you too, to help decide what that path is. Is couples counseling going to work for us? Or do we need to go through the discernment counseling process to figure out what our decision should be?
And that's why we do what we do as licensed therapists. And we want you to know that those resources are available to you. So wherever you are and watching this, if you're going through something like that, I've put links in the description of this video below to some therapist directories where you can find a therapist in your area to help you work through this issue. But it's really important, Matt, that people find a therapist that works with that issue. So do your research on those therapists. I've also put a link to the therapist directory for discernment counselors. So if you are considering divorce, that word has come up, that might be the directory you want to search in. But again, look at the options, research those counselors, and interview them to see if they're equipped to work with this issue. Matt, I really appreciate you being with us today, giving us this very important information, really interesting things to think about. Thank you all for joining us. We hope to see you back here next time.
Thank you very much.